Just about ready to go on this Saturday from Davidson. And away we go for this non-conference battle between the Wildcats and the Highlanders. Davidson starts with possession. Here's Unjun Lee, the conference's leading scorer, more than 18 points per game. He's got the ball right now. Brajkovic inside scores. The senior from Austria, great slip to the tin.
And what they were able to do there, Davidson got Junkum away from the rim, and that created a big mismatch for Brajkovic on the interior. That's an easy finish for him.
McNeil slips and travels. And Matt, this was something we talked about at the top. Radford turns the ball over nearly 17 times per game, and that just can't happen early, and not a good way to set the tone.
Yeah, the Highlanders, if they're to win this ball game today, must control the tempo. They're a team that wants to play in the high 50s, low 60s. Davidson, a team much more comfortable playing in the mid to high 70s.
Offensive foul goes against Sam Meninga, who shakes his head. He's had a rough go at it recently, scored in double figures 4 of his first 5 games, but he's been in some foul trouble since. Radford ball. Highlanders out of the Big South Conference, projected 4th in the North Division. First time the Big South has split into divisions. There's Xavier Lipscomb. Now Rashawn Williams, our player spotlight at the top. 7 on the shot clock. Great defense from Mike Jones. Unjun Lee is fouled by Lewis Jochum. What would you like to see early on from Davidson? They've won 6 in a row. We talked about the 3-point shooting. What do you want to see from Davidson to know they're engaged early?
Well, I think more than anything, you want to get Sam Meninga going. You talked about the bumps in the road for him since the early going. And I think a big part of it is he's the 5th guy, if you will, in this starting lineup. It's not a question of talent. It's a question of where he fits in a rotation where so many guys have a ton of talent and demand a lot of shots.
Here's Foster Loyer coming off that career high 35 points last time out against Northeastern. Gobbles that one up off the deck. Loyer, good ball fake, and knocks down his first 3. Foster Loyer used that pump fake quite a bit against Northeastern. In fact, Matt, that's one thing Bob McKillop said post-game. The pump fakes from Foster Loyer were lethal in that win.
Yeah, coming back down the court, though, Foster Loyer was grimacing and kind of shaking out his left wrist. Certainly his non-shooting hand, but something to keep an eye on after that first make.
An early substitution for the Highlanders, 5 on the shot clock as Kyrie Walker's into the game. Side pocket 3, no dice from Brian Hart, the graduate student, but an offensive rebound. And the 3-pointer falls for the second attempt. Brian Hart, just 36% from 3, able to knock that one down.
But he's a volume shooter.
Mike Jones buries a corner 3, and he's got a chance for a 4-point play. Was his foot on the line?
I think the official along the near sideline pointed to a 2. I didn't have a great angle on it, but I think it was a 2. Nonetheless, a chance to earn one more here at the line for Mike Jones.
Mike Jones from Minnesota cashes in. Well, on the stats, it was listed as a 3. So give him the 4-point play. And Davidson leads 9-3 in the early going. The A-10 against the Big South. Rashawn Williams. That deadens off the iron, and Unjun Lee accelerates into the front court. Too many steps. Foster Loyer travels. Some early subs for Bob McKillop, Grant Huffman, and Desmond Watson check in. We had a chance to catch up with assistant coach, associate head coach Matt McKillop in his 14th season before this game. And Matt, he told us that the bench players, in particular Huffman and Watson, add a different element to the table when they come into the game. It's not like they're subbing to be the same type of productivity.
Well, and I think in today's game in particular, Bochi Yedam's going to be a great matchup against Williams, an athletic forward who can go out and contest shots, really good on the defensive end.
Yeah, Bochi Yedam, the other player to check in along with Huffman and Desmond Watson. Here's Huffman with the ball. A terrific defender, according to Matt McKillop. Hunjun Lee splashes home a three, and Davidson's out to a 12-3 charge against Radford. A remodeled Radford team, as we alluded to earlier. Darius Nichols in his first season as the head coach, just 35 years old, the 5th youngest head coach in Division I. And it's going to take some time, but it is exciting because he returns home to where he played high school, Radford High. Hunjun Lee off the mark, the rebound down to Kyrie Walker, redshirt senior from Upper Marlboro, Maryland.
But Davidson's getting what they want. They've made their first three. That was their first miss from long range, but they're getting the looks they want, going inside out early.
Yeah, Davidson made their first 4 shots from the floor. Shot clock at 10. Good ball movement in the corner. Williams to Brian Hart. And that one swirls out for Hart, who's 1 of 3 from beyond the arc.
Yeah, I mentioned a moment ago, he's a volume shooter. Coming into play today, 41 of his 57 attempts coming from outside the arc. So even though he's a touch below 40%, certainly a guy who's a likely three-point shot taker.
Yeah, 6 of 13 for Hart in his last 3 games, as that one bounces a couple times.
Own right on the bench for Florida.
And his older brother Shane is on staff. I asked him, what's the best piece of advice your older brother's given you in your life? And Darius said, I wouldn't say advice. He said he basically showed me how to work without telling me. So that means 6 a.m. basketball drills and whatnot were taking place. And Darius would just follow in Shane's footsteps in the morning, wouldn't ask any questions. Shot clock at 6. Here's R.T. Stapleton, floater in the lane, and that's pure for the junior from Chicago, who had 6 starts on the season, coming off the bench today.
Yeah, a little bit surprised that he didn't earn the nod, but a really athletic guard who's a guy who's going to drive downhill, get to the bucket. The only concern for him, much like the team, turnovers.
Desmond Watson off the mark, and a rebound for Drayvon Mangum, a redshirt junior from Roxborough, North Carolina, who just checked in as well for Darius Nichols' team.
Well, Mangum started his career with the Charlotte 49ers, so he's faced Davidson before, went against the Wildcats back in 2018. Mangum in that ball game against Davidson was able to put up 9 points and 3 rebounds.
Here's Hunjun Lee, tough shot, no problem, right over top of Keyshawn Porter, who just entered the game as well, a 6'4" sophomore.
Well, I think when Lee left the floor, he was going up trying to get contact and earn a foul call, and he was looking for that call, made the shot, but I think he was more intent on trying to get the whistle than making the basket. But when you're as good of a shooter as Hunjun Lee, well, no problem on the jumper.
He is something else. One of the best players in the A-10, one of the best players in the country. He's on the Julius Erving list, watch list, I should say, which recognizes the top small forwards in Division I, and a junior from South Korea who continues to grow his game. And Matt McKillop told you pregame about his rebounding ability. It's up there. He's averaging 7 a game, but they don't really talk about that. It just happens naturally, it seems. He gets rebounds.
Yeah, he said just really good instincts, able to identify when that shot goes up, whether his guy is crashing or not, and make most of it. Getting an offensive rebound is there's an over-the-back call on Luka Brajkovic rebounding, but I think it's really interesting for a guy in Lee who was brought in as a shooter and has rounded out his game offensively in a lot of different ways. And while he certainly has the height, you don't look at him and go, oh, he's your leading rebounder. But he is. And McKillop, to your point, Sam, said historically Davidson guards tend to rebound really well.
A Davidson team that has looked very good so far this season, 7-2. They've won 6 in a row, their longest win streak since the 2014-2015 campaign. And Radford getting sloppy with the ball. Backcourt violation as Porter couldn't save it. And Davidson takes over possession as Christensen, the junior from Denmark, enters the game for Nelson Bochi-Edom. We'll talk about this throughout the course of the game, but the A-10 is absolutely loaded. It's a wide open slate and too early to call for sure when you look up and down the league. But Davidson sitting at 7-2. Off to a good start. Here's Mike Jones. Now Christensen getting some early PT today. Meninga attacks baseline. A little too strong. Radford the other way. Rashin Williams attacks and throws it down with one hand. Goodness. The biggest highlight yet for Radford.
Well, you certainly see the athleticism there from Williams. 6'7", 220. Boy, does he have some leaping ability and hang time.
A junior from Arlington, Georgia, transferred over from South Florida, where he played 3 years for the Bulls. Actually was recruited out of high school by Darius Nichols, Radford's head coach, when he was an assistant at Florida. So he had his eyes on Rashin Williams, now in his first year at Radford, and he answers for a second straight possession with a three. Williams now with 5. 18-10. Radford with a couple of buckets to try and climb back into this as Mike Jones responds from the top. The redshirt junior is shooting 42% from 3. Quite the upgrade from a season ago. He was averaging in single digits last season. Now he's averaging 11.4 points per game.
And certainly part of it is the role and the playing time, but you just see the confidence blossoming for Mike Jones to be able to step into shots and get the playing time, to not feel like he's got to make the most of 5 or 10 minutes in a game. Like, he's relied upon it, and he's able to find the rhythm and find the groove offensively.
That's a good point. Mike Jones knows that he's going to get more playing time now that he's a starter, as opposed to coming off the bench. And there he is, the garbage man inside, Mike Jones with 9 points.
Well, credit Jones's hustle, but that is a poor rebound for Radford to give up. I mean, he caught that hip high at the free throw line. They had 4 guys standing around. No one really truly boxed out. Jones on the perimeter.
Mangum buries a 3. Ravon Mangum shooting 37% from 3 this season.
And he fits their mold, right? A forward by position, but a guy comfortable playing on the perimeter.
Foster Lawyer, tough bucket inside. Every time Radford gets something on their side of the floor, they can't get a stop defensively, and they've struggled to really guard this season.
And what have we seen the last 3 possessions? A 3-ball by Mike Jones, an offensive rebound by Mike Jones, an assist by Mike Jones. He impacts them in so many different ways.
Yeah, what a start for Mike Jones. 9 points. He's perfect from the floor. He's cashed in on a 4-point play. Here's Foster Lawyer weaving through traffic. Inside 10 minutes to play in the first half. Jones, his first miss from the floor. Lipscomb the rebound for Radford. Rashin Williams rises. Now 1 of 3 from downtown, 2 of 6 from the floor, and Davidson will slow it down, coming off that 79-69 win over Northeastern on the road. Had 5 days off of an actual game, that is, as Foster Lawyer, you just can't leave him that open. He's 56% from 3, Matt, which is second in the country according to the NCAA official stats page. That is ridiculous, and he's going to make that every time.
Well, it's just so difficult to defend this team, and Lawyer's going to get the credit in the box score, but it was all of the off-ball movement. Here's another steal, and Davidson comes away with it. There's all this cutting action to the basket, and that's what frees up Lawyer, because the defense has to sag back. They have to cut off those passing lanes, and as a result, Lawyer left alone for that 3-pointer.
Yeah, Bob McKillop said post-game after the win against Northeastern that Foster Lawyer was just a guy that brought the ball up the floor off the bench at Michigan State. Now he is a scorer. He is a scorer and pass type of point guard. With 5 on the shot clock, Lipscomb misses the 3, and Radford now 3 of 9 from distance in this first half. And we see both the starting point guard and backup for Davidson out there on the floor, Huffman and Lawyer, along with David Christensen, Sam Meninga, and Mike Jones, 10 on the shot clock. Same school. It's just been great to see what he's done over the years, and this season, he's got a team that has a chance to compete for an A-team championship.
Well, I think this team is a testament to his coaching abilities. There are not many coaches that lose a guy like Kellen Grady, and teams come back the next year and win 7 of their first 9 and 6 in a row. It's a plug-and-play system, but there are not many coaches that can overcome the talent loss in Kellen Grady and find guys who were role players a year ago that slot in so well in the starting rotation.
Yeah, no question. And one of those guys, Foster Lawyer, who we've highlighted, 5 to shoot for Radford. All discombobulated on this possession as Stapleton misses the 3, and Shaquan Jules, who just entered the game, a 6'7" junior from Orlando, got the offensive rebound.
And they're going to need contributions from Jules, and Jonkum's been on the bench for a majority of this opening half. They've got to get paint touches. 3 balls are not going to beat this Davidson team, and they're finally able to cash in down low.
Yeah, that highlight right there from Shaquan Jules. He did that a few times when I was looking back at the Radford game against Virginia Tech. Radford played Virginia Tech and Virginia earlier on in non-conference, lost both of those games, but Jules was a bright spot a few times as Brajkovic with some body. Sam Hyman with you on ESPN Plus this Saturday afternoon, just north of Charlotte. It's been all Wildcats so far, shooting 58% from the floor. And this Radford team out of the Big South struggling.
Well, Sam, you talked about the tempo of this game going into that last timeout, and Davidson picking up full court pressure right out of the timeout, trying to speed up the Highlanders a bit. This is a team that is in the lower third of NCAA hoops in terms of tempo. They don't have a ton of depth. If they're able to get sped up, that really plays into Davidson's hands.
And Radford, a team that has struggled to take care of the ball as well. They've already turned it over 5 times as Unjun Lee gets the backside rebound and tosses it ahead to Desmond Watson, the very talented freshman from Columbus, Ohio.
And again, I think for Radford, the biggest thing that I point to here early is shot selection. 11 of their first 19 from three-point range. And you see what Lawyer's able to do, that time along too. It's just not a team you want to get in a shootout with. They have to establish something on the interior.
This has been such a quick game. We've seen just 1 free throw taken from both squads. Here's Cameron McNeil, and the official was about to call an offensive foul.
It was like a play on in soccer.
He had the motion ready, and then we just kept rolling. And here's a takeaway. This is Kyrie Walker. Now Brian Hart unloads and sticks a 3. That's his 2nd of the game, and somebody just got teed up. I just saw somebody get a technical foul. Bob McKillop is visibly frustrated. It may be back to when there was a no call.
Well, yeah, it goes against Meninga. So what happened there, Sam, to go back to that last sequence, is you had what should have been a charge at one end,
right,
not called because the referee deemed in his mind that it would be a disservice to Davidson to make that call, that they had the advantage, so he held back. Then on the other end, Meninga goes into the defense. Guy falls down. There's no call on either way, block or charge, and it leads to a fast break bucket. And so I almost think that by not making that call on one end, the ref felt like he couldn't on the other. And so even though initially in his mind it was to help Davidson because they had the advantage, it led to a transition bucket the other way for Radford.
That is a tough pill to swallow. Bob McKillop continues to showcase the frustration, and rightfully so, as Radford a chance to get to within single digits. The Highlanders haven't led this entire game. Davidson has dominated, shooting 60% from the floor. And now there's There was a technical foul, and at first it looked like it was going to be Radford's ball. It's Davidson's ball. Little confusion there.
Well, I think because the technical came when Davidson was in possession, it was after the made basket with Davidson bringing the ball up the floor. Because of that, they don't get the possession, Radford, that is, after making those 2 technical free throws.
All cleared up now, and Radford, great ball fake. Corner 3, pure from Tarion Joseph, a sophomore from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And the Davidson fans frustrated right now as Radford's on a 5-0 run. It's within 7. Foster Lawyer unloads. And a rebound down to Brian Hart of Radford. Now an 8-0 run over the last 70 seconds for the Highlanders. That was a very significant sequence for Radford as Stapleton scurries down the lane and scores. It's a 10-0 run for Radford. Less than 5 to play in this first half.
Well, this 1-2-2 pressure has been a part of it. Davidson certainly doesn't turn it over very much. They're able to break it from an X's and O's perspective.
Run that. Coach McKillop was frustrated that the charge didn't get called, but we play on. Here's Mike Jones. Slashes to the tin and scores, and that will erase the drought of more than 2 minutes of no scoring from the Wildcats. Much needed.
Well, I don't know if anyone could catch this, but on that inbound play, the first option was Foster Lawyer coming around a couple of screens, and he was able to turn the corner so tightly. It looked like he was a hockey player on skates, just the way his body was angled around those screens.
And you had the vision to recognize that. Kudos to you. That's what you call going in depth prior to the inbound. As Shaquan Jules scored on the other end, he's shown some post presence here as Watson slips on the floor. Second time we've seen somebody slip on the floor today. Des Watson.
Well, he's fortunate. His head went flying backwards, and that could have been a lot worse. Certainly they're going to mop up the perspiration, but boy, for a split second, I had visions of his head flying back against the hardwood.
Yeah, never want to see something like that transpire, and fortunately he's okay. Davidson setting up in a full court press here against Radford outside of 3 minutes to play in the first half. The Highlanders on a 12-2 run over the last 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Radford's trying to snap a 3-game losing streak and win their first game on the road this season. They're 4-7 against a Davidson team that's won 6 in a row, 7-2 overall. Artis Stapleton, 7-shoot, and another slip at the top of the key, a blocking foul. A charge to Kyrie Walker, a redshirt senior, with his first personal. That's the same place that I believe Cameron McNeil slipped.
Yeah, that first possession of the game.
You remember that?
Yep. But going back to the play design there, what they were trying to do is get Stapleton matched up against Jones. Originally, Davidson wanted to have Huffman guarding him. Huffman's a great defender. They're able to get that switch, and if they can go back to that, Stapleton is a really good downhill driver.
Grant Huffman attack, and Huffman goes 0 for 2 and not able to sub out at the moment. 2:22 to play in the first. Radford's on a 12-2 run. The Highlanders seeking their first road win of this season. Joseph connects on a 3, and the Highlanders are on a 15-2 run. It's just a 2-point game.
Well, and Huffman clearly hobbled on the defensive end. They were able to get it to Joseph, his man defensively.
Foster Lawyer responds with a 3 from the top. 13 points for Foster Lawyer, shooting 56% from 3 this season. 5-point lead for the Wildcats. Davidson's led by as many as 15 in this game, but it has gotten tight over the last 5 minutes. Here's Brian Hart. Now Rashawn Williams, shot clock at 6. RT Stapleton. That was a very dangerous pass, some contact. Radford turns it over for the 8th time. Here comes Davidson. Here's Unjun Lee, 5 points thus far. Huffman, wide open 3. And a rebound for Tyrion Joseph. Blocking foul is called on the drive. It's against Foster Lawyer. He looked to be in position against RT Stapleton. Boy, the last 6 minutes, Matt, have favored Radford. They have closed the gap just to 5 with less than a minute to play.
Well, Bob McKillop can't believe that last call, and I'm with him. It looked to me like that was right into the chest in legal guarding position. That said, Davidson, I thought, got away with a foul coming around. I thought it was Huffman trying to support the backside on the lob on the last sequence. May have gotten away with the foul there as well.
Stapleton inbounds. Less than a minute to play in this first half. Radford trying to snap a 3-game losing streak against the Wildcats, who have won 6 in a row, their longest win streak since the 14-15 season when they made the NCAA tournament as a 7 seed, as that goes out of bounds. Davidson led 30-15 with 5:26 to play in the first half as Lawyer hits the front end, and fast forward to 43.9 seconds remaining in the first, and it's just a 6-point game.
Well, certainly that technical foul three-pointer sequence was big, but at the same time, I think the other things that have really worked for Radford, the 1-2-2 pressure has disrupted Davidson's offensive sets, and they've also been good shooting the 3. 6 of 14, that's about 13% better than their season average.
Yeah, 33% from 3 coming in through the first 11 games for the Highlanders. RT Stapleton at a 13-second differential shot clock and game clock.
He nearly slipped as well there at the point.
Stapleton drives, skips it to Rashawn Williams. Great defensive sequences remain in the first half. 7-point lead for Davidson. Here's Lawyer with 15 points to Mike Jones. Attacks, and it was pinned off the backboard. The bucket will count. Goaltending is the call with 7 seconds remaining. That was a rapid possession for Davidson, and it worked out. Mike Jones with 13.
Yeah, plenty of time still, though, left for Radford.
4 seconds left. That 3, no dice from Mangum. Second half, let's hit the go button as Radford starts with the ball. A young team, a brand new coaching staff, 7 coaches on this roster. The average age is 30 as Shaquan Jules scores quickly for Radford. The lead down to 7. Darius Nichols in his first year as the head coach at Radford, coming over from Florida. And it's been a work in progress, but the Highlanders are playing tough here against Davidson as Menenga is fouled.
And that's exactly what you want from Davidson. You want touches in the paint, and you want Menenga to really make Jules work on the defensive end, because Jules has been big here today, coming off the bench, 6 points offensively, and really the only paint presence we've seen to this point for Radford.
Yeah, it was Lewis Jockum who started this game, the redshirt senior. We haven't seen him at all since 19 minutes left in the first half. Great body control by Unjun Lee. Just had 5 points in the first half to go along with 5 rebounds, 2 assists for the A-10's leading scorer. More than 18 points a game for Lee. 41-32 Davidson, seeking its 7th straight win.
Yeah, and certainly we don't have any additional information on Jonkum. He's sitting 3 seats from the end of the bench, and after just playing the first 2 minutes of the ball game, you don't really get the sense that he's coming back in, but he doesn't appear to be injured either.
8 points for Shaquan Jules, 4 already in this second half. And he appears to be the go-to guy in the paint the rest of the way. given the way he's played. Shot clock at 10. Here's Mike Jones inside to Sam Meninga, the native of New Zealand. 4 to shoot. Meninga, great spin, and no dice.
But that's what Davidson wanted, and that's what I was talking about, being patient, being comfortable working there at the tail end of the shot clock. Meninga got a good look, just couldn't finish.
Brian Hart out of bounds. 6 of 17 for Radford from 3. That's below 37%. But it's still better than their season average at 33. They've knocked down some big threes, including Terrion Joseph's 2 triples in the first half off the bench. 41-34, Davidson on top. Great slip from Brajkovic, and he flushes it down the drain. Brajkovic, who just took 3 shots from the floor in the first half, big one. He really needed that, and now it's 43-34. Davidson on top of the Highlanders from the Big South Conference, trying to snap a 3-game losing streak. And they've used just about everybody on their roster as the Highlanders will send in Lewis Jochum.
It looks like they got Hung Jun Lee with a bump there defensively. But we haven't really talked a ton about what Radford does schematically. They really do a nice job of working the ball side to side. And oftentimes, once a point guard enters the ball into the low post as Jochum re-enters, that point guard is able to vacate towards the corner, and they do this replace action that really spurs the offense side to side.
Radford turns it over for the 11th time as Rashawn Williams was trying to get it to Jochum. Here's Mike Jones, 13 points so far. Great skip in the corner, and Lawyer buries the 3 in front of the bench. Foster Lawyer with 18 points.
Well, Ford made 3s in this ball game on the heels of 8 his last time out against Northeastern. But what a gutsy pass by Mike Jones, not only to go over top of the defense, but also over top of the rim. That's not an easy pass to execute.
Second assist for Mike Jones. And a memorable one as Brajkovic secures his 4th rebound. Foster Lawyer unloads. Meninga secures the offensive rebound. Mike Jones, the native of Minnesota, great patience, can't finish. Here's Artis Stapleton the other way, a Division II Lewis University transfer, coughs up the ball, 12 Radford turnovers. And they average 17, almost 17 turnovers a game. That is the thorn in this Highlanders squad side.
Yeah, great defense from Brajkovic there on the other end to reach in and get a hand in there. Active hands, playing like a guard on the perimeter defensively for a guy who's 7 feet tall.
I want to bring this up. We talked about it during the William & Mary game, how Bob McKillop referred to Hung Jun Lee as the tertiary point guard, meaning the 3rd in line. Brings the ball up the floor sometimes. He can do just about everything, Matt Present. Does it all.
Yeah, and I think it's indicative of his rebounding, his ball handling, and the fact that he's able to move so well without the basketball. And I think there's so many interchangeable parts on this Davidson team. Certainly guys have different strengths and weaknesses, but they fit so well into this motion offense, this cutting system, and that's what allows each and every one of them to flourish.
Foul off the ball as Huffman hits the deck hard. The officials will call an offensive foul on Lewis Jochum. Yeah, that's his 3rd personal foul. So he has been a non-factor, the starting 5-man from Springfield, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C.
I'd have to see that again, Sam, but seeing it live, I think the severity of the collision impacted the call. I think it was a good screen, and Huffman just got blindsided and fell down because he was hit by a bigger body.
There's Grant Huffman, now Lee. Davidson looking for some bench production. They've got a couple of guys off the pine on the floor right now. Desmond Watson, Grant Huffman, and Nelson Bochayedem. But it's the starter for the 10th time this season, Luka Brajkovic, who scores. He's got 8 points.
Well, and just keep feeding him, right? I mean, he's able to catch that ball inside the charge circle, and that's such a luxury. Radford's going to have to start bringing a second defender, and that's going to open up three-point shooting. But it all starts with that deep catch.
There's Mangum, who cashes in a three. That's the 7th Radford triple. Drayvon Mangum with his 2nd of the game from beyond the arc. The lead is 13 for the Wildcats, looking for their 7th win in a row. And some jostling on the low block. Nelson Bochayedem and Drayvon Mangum tangled up a bit. I didn't see too much. The foul's on Mangum. That is his 1st. And Shaquan Jules takes a seat, and in comes Kyrie Walker, spelled Chyyree. Coming off the bench, the redshirt senior who started his career at Delaware, as Lee scoots to the basket and draws a foul. Foul goes against Kyrie Walker, so Lee back to the line where he'll have a couple of chances to add to his total right now, sitting at 9 points for a guy that comes from a basketball family. Unjun Lee, his mother played on the South Korea Olympic team, actually, in 1984. Silver medal was awarded to that squad back in the mid-'80s, and his father, a longtime head coach in South Korea. So they have got one heck of a son who's got potential, Matt, I think beyond the college level. He's elite in multiple areas, and he's very humble too. I think one of the things that I pulled from media days a couple months ago is just the fact that he doesn't like to give himself the credit.
And it'll be interesting to see what his future.
58% from the floor. As we are back underway, this is Desmond Watson, the freshman from Columbus, Ohio, looking for his first bucket of the game, as is Grant Huffman, who's got the ball right now. Quick entry pass, Luka Brajkovic, 8 points, making his 10th start of the season, and that was great work, easy work for Brajkovic. He's got 10.
Yeah, again, able to take a peek around his shoulder, see that whatever help defense might be coming was going to come from the opposite block. The rest of his offensive teammates are able to clear out, and he's just too strong on that low block.
Had a quiet game against Northeastern offensively, but did have 3 blocks and 7 rebounds as Mangum navigates inside and scores. Drayvon Mangum with 8 points off the bench for Darius Nichols' team. Quickly the other way, Brajkovic soaring high. 12 points for Luka Brajkovic. And you alluded to the great pass there, Matt.
Yeah, Bochayedem able to come towards the center court circle to catch that ball and just turn and distribute, with Brajkovic cutting to the rim.
55-39 lead, largest advantage of the game for Davidson at 16 points. And Radford turns it over for the 15th time today. It's been a struggle for the Highlanders, who currently sit 4-7 on the season, still without a road win. Davidson right now with the fewest losses among any team in the A-10. They're 7-2. Now it's early, and Davidson hasn't had any games against Power 5 opponents, if you will, but as Bob McKillop will say time and time again, they've had difficult teams on the schedule that a lot of people don't really know about, as Sam Meninga rises high and rocks the rim. You know, New Mexico State is no joke. San Francisco is undefeated, and that's a tough West Coast trip. So the schedule is one that you can't really gloss over, even though there aren't the Blue Bloods on the slate. And as Bochayedem was open on the outlet pass there. The game against Loyola Chicago, Matt, is not going to happen because Loyola Chicago had a COVID outbreak. Foster Loyer now with 20 points, the Michigan State transfer. So it's going to be interesting next week. Where does Davidson go? Can they schedule somebody else? Because if they don't, then they won't have a game until December 30th against Duquesne to open up the A-10 slate.
Well, and it's unfortunate because Loyola Chicago is such an established mid-major program. That was going to be a really tough non-conference set. Right, it's one you circle on the calendar, and you know Davidson would certainly like to replace it. They hope to have an answer on that front by the end of the day today. But Matt McKillop joked with us pregame. He said, I know every schedule in the nation. That's been his focus the last 24 hours, trying to fill that void come Wednesday.
That's amazing. I'm sure I believe him. You have to believe him. He said it pretty confidently. He knows every schedule in the nation. That's impressive. I think that's tougher than running back the last 20 NCAA champions, right? Is that tougher?
I don't know. Either way, it's a challenge, but I mean, it's a moving target.
Foul it. Great work, Matt Present. Great work.
But it's amazing how many fewer games it took Steph than Ray Allen or Reggie Miller. I mean, he's like 10 years younger than when those guys ended their career.
Yeah, it's amazing. So it doesn't look like a flagrant was called on Loyer. Instead, it's just his second personal. And David Christensen is called for the foul. It is amazing. And Ray Allen played 19 seasons in the NBA, and Steph is in year 13.
Right, and he's transformed the way the game is played at that level. And to me, what stands out most about him is he just plays with so much joy. And it's always exciting to watch really talented players, regardless of the sport. But the really talented players that you can tell watching through the screen are having so much fun, it's that much better. And he is one of the very few that the joy just radiates through the screen. I felt that way about Zion Williamson, watching him play in college a couple years ago. Just so much happiness playing the game.
A lot of smiles all the time for Steph Curry as Artis Stapleton is charged for a foul on the reach-in on Foster Loyer with 9:46 to play in this second half from Belk Arena in Davidson. Well, Bob McKillop did join the afternoon rush on the radio earlier this week and again used the word sensational to describe Steph Curry. Brought this team to the Elite Eight back in 2008.
And the other thing I'd mention, and again, you gave the caveat, I'm not a huge NBA guy, but Ray Allen and Reggie Miller were not point guards. I mean, they were shooting specialists, right? Steph Curry's an excellent passer. He's a guy that can win off the dribble and get to the rim, and he's the best shooter in the world.
It is so fun to watch, and for him to do it at MSG, and for Bob McKillop to be able to go up there and make the quick trip had to be so sweet for the 33rd year head coach at Davidson. As Loyer hits both free throws, he's got 22 points, and Foster Loyer, such a great addition to this team. First year at Davidson, transferred from Michigan State where he played 86 games, but he only started 8 games across 3 seasons, and he's just sparkled immediately since putting on a Davidson uniform. 61-42 lead. Stapleton wants that to count. And it looks like the officials saying that the foul was on the floor against Desmond Watson.
Well, you have one team complaining that it wasn't an and one and another team complaining that it was a charge. Tough to please.
Here's Rashawn Williams. Tough pass inside. Plucked away by Loyer, and he does commit the personal on the reach, and Foster Loyer commits his 3rd personal. As Grant Huffman will return. I did ask Matt McKillop, associate head coach, a player comp for Foster Loyer from former Davidson players. He said Brian Sullivan, who was about Foster's height, except Brian was more of a scorer. Foster can also dish the ball very effectively. He's got 4 assists today, so great to have a true point guard this season. Brajkovic fouls Shaquan Jules underneath the 10.
Great pass from Mangum to lead him to that spot back door. That was a pass where you just have to trust your teammate to get there. And although he didn't score, he caught it in good position and earns free throws.
Shaquan Jules, the junior from Orlando, Florida, coming in, leading the team in free throws made with 20. We talked about the upcoming schedule, which is a little unknown right now for Davidson, with the game against Loyola Chicago canceled due to the Ramblers' COVID outbreak. Still trying to find out who they'll play, if they will play next week. Radford will not play Akron, actually, on Monday. That was on the schedule, but another COVID situation. So their next game wouldn't be until the 29th against UMBC, unless, again, there would be a chance to fill in during that stretch. Hopefully, both of these teams can find opponents to fill in.
Well, and I said there's still so much in flux. For example, and not that I think Davidson is going to match up with a West Coast opponent, but just to illustrate my point, UCLA is in a COVID pause. They were scheduled to play today against North Carolina. UCLA plays Cal Poly on Wednesday. So if they can't return to action, well, then Cal Poly doesn't have an opponent. Again, not that I think Davidson and Cal Poly are going to get together, but there's teams right now that have canceled a single game where it's certainly, likely maybe or at least possible that multiple games get wiped off the schedule.
Yeah, you never know. It's just an odd time with COVID-19. Is in the top 2 in the Big South each of the last 4 seasons. And again, Big South Conference, 1 bid league. So despite the tough non-conference schedule, the losing record, 0 road wins, Darius Nichols can build this team within a season, and they could again compete for a championship in the Big South. It's just going to take time with a lot of new pieces.
Yeah, I mean, just a few years ago, they knocked off LIU Brooklyn in a play-in game for the NCAA tournament, that 16-16 for the right to play Villanova. They won the Big South regular season title in the 1920 season. Last year would have gone to the NIT had it been played. So, it's certainly a program that has a history of winning. It's just about getting these pieces and a lot of transfers, a lot of newcomers to all get on the same page and be able to find that chemistry.
Yeah, 5 transfers, added to this roster. Rashawn Williams, Terrion Joseph, Artis Stapleton, Cameron McNeil, and Rashawn Black are the 5 transfers. And so it's going to take some time for Coach Nichols, but he is back home, and to be in a place where you grew up, you went to high school at Radford High, and there's a level of comfort, especially given the fact that it is his first Division I head coaching job. You'd like to think that the nerves are maybe lessened a bit because there's so many familiar faces around him.
Well, right, and the way he's assembled his assistant coaches, I think, is telling, right? You have his older brother. Well, that takes some pride, right, to say, I'm the younger brother, I'm going to be the head man, but I want you by my side. But, Shane Nichols coming from Murray State, coached the likes of John Morant there. Timothy Petey from Missouri Western State, previously in the region on Wes Miller's staff at UNC Greensboro. And James Herring, who was the director of basketball operations at Dayton, familiar with this A-10 conference, familiar with this regional landscape. And so I think that's telling of how he plans to build the program.
He's got a 4-guard lineup that is not just something that he told us is by default with the roster that he has. He likes having 4 guards out there the majority of the time. Here's Artis Stapleton, one of the guards, Division II Lewis transfer. That's just outside of Chicago. As Radford turns it over for the 18th time. That's the one area where if they are to compete for a Big South championship, great look inside as Lee scores off the dime from Grant Huffman. They can't turn the ball over this much. That's going to be super key and something to watch in conference play.
So if my math's right, it's a 19-point deficit right now?
Correct.
19 points off of turnovers for Davidson.
It's exactly what we talked about. The turnovers for Radford have not only lost them the possession, but the points that Davidson is putting in the bucket are from those turnovers. And so, again, you have to tip your cap to Radford. They fought late in the first half. Still 6:28 left in the game, but facing a much larger deficit. It was a 15-point lead with about 6 minutes to play in the first half, and Radford went on a 12-2 run and got to within 5. But Davidson has dominated this second half as Jules hits the second free throw. And Lewis Jocham will check into the game. A bit of a peculiar day for Lewis Jocham. He's got 3 fouls. He's only played 3 minutes, but when he picked up his first foul, that was all she wrote for his PT in the first half. Hunjun Lee rises off the mark. 1 of 4 from 3 today for Lee. Lawyer, the triple try. Rashawn Williams, the South Florida transfer in his first year at Radford with a rebound. Trayvon Mangum is bumped, no call. Jocham the offensive rebound. Stapleton, a foul warning has been issued on Trayvon Mangum. I'm not sure, maybe there was some dialogue that was said of some kind, but a verbal warning, or a foul warning, I should say, issued to Trayvon Mangum.
Yeah, it's an interesting call because usually a flop warning is assessed to a guy trying to take a charge, and that was not the case. It was called on the offensive player, and now a foul going against Brajkovic, who got his elbow up into the jaw of Williams.
Sam Meninga returns for Davidson.
Yeah, that's 4 on Brajkovic, and I think this right here, Sam, illuminates, I think, the one concern I have for this Davidson team, and that's bench production. It's been minimal today, and as you go through Atlantic 10 play, there's going to be a game where a Brajkovic or a Lee gets in foul trouble. You've got to have a 6th option.
Nice floater from Brian Hart. He's in double figures with 10. Shaquan Jules leads Radford with 12 points off the bench for a Radford team that has played 13 guys today. And no Josiah Jeffers. He broke his nose against James Madison a couple of games ago. 5 on the shot clock for the Wildcats. A good look there from Lawyer. Nice save from Rashawn Williams. Radford marches the other way. Highlanders have yet to win on the road this season. Their last game was in the nation's capital, lost to George Washington 67-58. A legal screen called on Rashawn Williams. Davidson ball. I mentioned the A10 is so deep, 6 or 7 teams almost you could point at and say they could win the league. when you look at Davidson, Rhode Island, St. Louis, Dayton, Richmond, VCU, even St. Bonaventure, they did suffer a brutal loss yesterday, 86-49 to Virginia Tech in the Basketball Hall of Fame shootout at Spectrum Center in Charlotte, as Foster Loyer pours in his 8th field goal. He's got 24 points to go along with 4 dimes. Big game tonight in the A-10, or for the A-10. St. Louis will play 13th ranked Auburn at 8 o'clock. That should be interesting.
Well, Dayton's got the most noteworthy win, beating Kansas earlier this year, and they certainly don't have the headliner, Obi Toppin, like they had a couple of years ago, but they seem to be a really...
RT Stapleton slipped there, but we have seen the towels come out a few times.
Yeah, don't really know what to make of it. Not something that, I don't want to speak for you, but that I recall seeing, you know, in terms of a pattern on this floor. It's not a hockey arena.
Yeah, not on this floor.
You don't really have a reason that you point to as an explanation, but certainly have noticed that tonight.
Yeah, there was a player that I spoke to earlier this season, Aaron Gordon, who plays for Valparaiso, and he told me that at the Dunkin' Donuts Center, there was a game that had to get put on pause because obviously that arena is where, you know, hockey is played and basketball, and so there was some ice that was melting, and that's what caused the floor to
Pro
be a
tip,
little wet.
next time it's just I spoke to Aaron Gordon.
I did speak to Eric Gordon too, his father. Emery Lanier has just checked into the game for Davidson. 3:30 to play in this second half. There's Brian Hart. He's got a lot of promise the rest of the way this season. Coach Nichols said he's been the biggest surprise. His energy and work ethic. Hart has 12 points. One thing's for sure, Radford, they can run out a lot of guys on the floor. Great fake by Unjun Lee. That was crafty, Houdini-like from the South Korea native. 14 points for Unjun Lee, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal.
Well, Radford froze Loyer coming around the screen with the second defender, and he was able to pitch it back to Lee. And when you have a three-point shooter like Lee, it's really hard to close out as that secondary defender, and Lee makes him pay, just going right by him to the basket.
A timeout taken by Davidson. 19-point lead for the Davidson Wildcats as Lee getting to the rack a moment ago. Great fake. I think the timeout just was for some substitutions. And Chris Ford has just checked into the game. And so has the young Icelandic talent, Styrmir Þrastarson, AKA Storm, according to his players, and Bob McKillop. All reserves out there for Davidson, with the exception of Foster Loyer. Emery Lanier at the free throw line. He's got 1 point on the season and connects on the first free throw. Drew Dibble enters the game for the Wildcats and replaces Foster Loyer, who had a heck of a day. 24 points for Foster Loyer, the Michigan State transfer, as we're just outside of 2 minutes remaining in this contest from Belk Arena. Again, both of these teams have quite a long stretch of time without a game unless they're able to reschedule next week. Davidson was supposed to play Loyola Chicago on Wednesday, but the Ramblers had a COVID situation, so the Wildcats will try to reschedule somebody. Here's Drew Dibble. The corner three is pure. First points of the season for Drew Dibble, playing in just his third game this year. The icing on the cake for Bob McKillop's team.
Yeah, great to see for Dibble. And on the other end a moment ago, that was McNeil's first bucket of the ball game. And give Davidson credit for keeping him in check, a guy who averages 7 points in 21 minutes a ball game, held silent for the first 38 minutes of regulation.
David Christensen picks up the foul. Lewis Jonkum at the free throw line. Caught up with Lewis a couple of days ago. He's played at a really good academy prior to arriving at the collegiate level. Hargrave Military Academy, which is the same place the likes of Montrezl Harrell, Terry Rozier attended, and told me that he learned how to go outside of his comfort zone there. Had to get up at 5 a.m. every day and march, and also had to do the dishes quite a bit after lunchtime in the cafeteria, so very disciplined and structured routine for Jonkum at Hargrave Military Academy. And started at VCU and is now at Radford. It'll be Radford basketball. Ben Craig into the game and Michael Katzak. Craig a senior and Katzak a freshman on the floor for Davidson. So all reserves and guys that don't get playing time, much playing time throughout the year, and mop-up duty to run this one out. But these guys, even though they don't get a lot of playing time during games, Bob McKillop has mentioned this a lot in post-game press conferences and whatnot, that these guys are vital in practice, and they could very well, especially a guy like Styrmir Tharsterson, get some minutes as their careers go on. He's 6'7", good range from Iceland, and Coach McKillop likes what he's seen so far from him in limited time on the floor. Final seconds will drip off the clock. Emory